Hey, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Rising Tide Leadership Podcast, where we simplify the complexities of your leadership journey. My name is Mo, and I'll be sitting in the host chair today because I have a very special guest. Riley is the managing director at Propeller, a consulting firm focused on strategy execution. He has expertise in helping leaders transform teams, scale organizations, and drive meaningful change. His leadership experience is across consulting, corporate strategy, and building high-performing teams. Today, we're going to explore leadership lessons from his consulting, change management, and how leaders can position their teams to thrive in complexity. Riley Smith, welcome to the show.
You need to be my permanent hype man. I like this.
I love it, man. I've been known to be the hype man.
Yeah. No, thank you for having me. Looking forward to the convo.
You got us. Why don't you tell my audience a little bit about your journey? Where did you start? What did you do? How did you find yourself where you are today?
Yeah, I think my journey is very non-traditional. So for any listeners out there that have, maybe hopped around or found themselves in different industries doing different things, hopefully it's a little bit of an inspiration that you can find a thread there. But yeah, I graduated out of college from the University of Utah, go Utes, and went to the Teach for America program. So did K through 12 education for 3 years as a high school biology teacher, but knew that wasn't the permanent career for me. Came out of that, got my master's degree and kind of was on the job market in the middle of the recession in 2010. At that time, I was still young in my career, just like pick up skills, even if it's in something that you're not super passionate about, it's not purposeful to you, maybe doesn't fill the bucket to the complete top. So picked up a couple jobs in various industries, political campaigns, hospitality, ended up in higher ed, but did some like digital marketing, communications types of roles, campaign management types of stuff. And two of my jobs in all of that were first time in role, first time launching a new function, we'll call it. And so that involved bringing a lot of people along, leadership included. Like, why do you exist? Why are you here? Putting together a strategy and a vision for the function, having measurable outcomes, putting them into tactics, measuring those, improving the value, right? And so at that point, I was doing that strategy end-to-end execution, right? And also, I'd realized I was bringing about change. And my master's degree is in sustainability, and inherent in sustainability is moving from a current state to a future state. It's creating change. And I was like, wow, yeah, I've been in these two roles. I've had to really inject change, make sure people felt comfortable with it. I wonder what that's called. There must be something out there that manages change. So I actually enjoy that aspect, and teaching is, there's parts of education. So I had this weird combination of teaching, running programs, communication, and then these two live examples of going end to end, almost like a consultant would. And I Googled like, who manages change? And there's a profession out there, there's certifications, there's professional credentials around change management. I was like, I should go become a change management consultant. That is my thread that no one would be able to pick out unless I voice it over. And that's where I found Propeller Consulting, was change management consultant for 3 years. And for the past 4.5, have really led kind of our people services line. So all projects that involve, talent strategy, organizational design, effectiveness, change management, large transformation types of projects have been kind of hands deep in all that.
Yeah, I love that you are about change management. Obviously, in leadership, one of the things that I always tell people is the only constant in leadership is change, just
Right.
like in life. And so looking back on your leadership philosophy, was there a pivotal moment that shaped the way that you think and the way that you went about consulting and changing people and what they do?
Yeah. I mean, weirdly enough, as I went through all of that, I enjoy being in front of people. That's the K through 12 teacher in me. Still probably to the day, the most challenging job I've ever done amidst all the things that I shared with you that I've done. And so I knew that I liked that piece. I knew I liked educating, and I knew I liked sharing experiences. But I think it was those two roles that I realized, oh, wow, this was kind of like consulting. They could have effectively hired me in to launch this program, get it up and running, hand it off to somebody and leave. I think those two moments for me where I can really put myself in different environments and widely different. One was a marketing function, one was a sustainability function. And so widely different topic areas, and be dangerous and know how to bring people along. And I get good juice, good energy out of that, and making sure that people aren't afraid of this change, right? That they feel like they're part of it. And so I think that element of, in key and change management, we talk a lot about stakeholder enablement, stakeholder engagement. Like I realized that early on before I knew it was called that thing, or that I knew that the tactics were out there for me to pluck from some course, right? I just was like, hey, if I was in their shoes, what would I think about what I'm doing? Oh, that's what I've got to tailor this a little bit to call out what's in it for them, or make it a little bit more tangible, or make it less scary. So I think it was those experiences that was just kind of got me really soaked into change management. I was like, okay, I like this. I don't know if that answered your question, but
Yeah, that's great.
yeah.
Propeller's known for helping leaders get from strategy to
Yeah.
execution. How do you see leadership as a critical link between those two?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the research, the leading kind of provider of research in the change space, ProSci. Have you heard of them, Mo, before?
No, I haven't.
ProSci, PROSCI. They're a credentialer of change management. They have this platform called AdCar. But they do a lot of research in this space, super valuable research. And to the day, it's definitely 7 years old, probably older than this. The leading contributor to effective change management is leadership sponsorship. If you don't have
Wow.
effective sponsorship, the change that you're trying to implement is most likely going to flounder, or you're going to have pockets of resistance. You're not going to drive the outcomes that you're looking to implement in the change. And so the most important thing that we can have leaders do, across varieties of change, right? Whether you're implementing a new technology, whether you're acquiring a new business and coming in and trying to merge those cultures, where you're doing a culture transformation on your own, creating career development opportunities, so on and so forth. All of the things that you find in business, leaders got to be really clear in their vision, and they need to be visible. And that's just not, one town hall and I'm good, I did my job. But you have to be visible through the elements of the transformation, the technology implementation. Those can be multi-year. And you have to be out there explaining the benefits, understanding where the pockets of concerns are, triaging those, helping your team highlight those, and being a really clear and consistent, transparent communicator. And when you have those leaders, and I'd invite your listeners to think like, when have I been in a project or in a company and the leader is just so out in front, visible, and whether it's a transformational project or his or her day to day, right? You feel more empowered to perform the thing that you're needing to do to move the train, if you will. So would invite folks to reflect on, when we went through that complicated thing, a reorg, and that leader, what they did. Typically those that feel good about how it ended, it's like, oh yeah, the leader was really out in front and really communicative, carving out time in focus groups or town halls and ask me anything types of environments. And I think that's really key.
Can you share an example where strong leadership turns strategy into measurable results?
Yeah, I'm thinking about one where I was a consultant, organization. It was priority one, really cool when you're on a consultant engagement and you see CEO go up the town hall format. Priority one is this project. You're like, I'm the change manager on that project. Okay. It was an implementation of a mobile app, and it was in a childcare company. And so they had 1,600, 2,000 kind of centers across the country, which means, and the mobile app was about how the teacher engaged with the family, the center director with the family. And I wasn't there for, the launch of the strategy. The leadership had very clear business outcomes on why we're doing this. It had to do with retention, consumer retention, had to deal with employee satisfaction, optimizing employee processes. So time savings was in there. And I think probably something around, our comp set, our competitors and what they do and how we are going to continue to push the envelope in the fringes of how we show up for our customers. And so I think when I joined, and again, I wasn't there for the inception of the strategy, it was just very clear. This is why we're doing this. When you're a change manager, as I was in this project, it's easier for you then to come up with project metrics or change metrics that you can then tie to the business outcomes. And so we wanted our teachers, our centers to be highly engaged and highly trained and highly performing in the system. We knew that had to happen for the business outcomes there, right? And so I think that's one example where leading with outcomes, leading with metrics, and that should be the form of your case for change narrative and your leadership communications became really clear to me as somebody on the ground doing the day-to-day work of why we're doing this.
I'd love to talk a little bit about leading through change. Change is often where leaders struggle the most. What advice do you give leaders who are trying to guide their teams through uncertainty?
Yeah, definitely the one that we've already talked to, so I won't belabor that anymore. But for our mature leaders, they know the value of change management. And I think for some out there, they still think that's a nice to have and not a must have. And so for any leaders on the conversation of those folks growing into leadership roles, even understanding some of the research, again, that I mentioned earlier, suggests for large projects. So, hey, I'm running a $5 million problem. Some of the research out there suggests I like to use the word 7.5. It could be as low as 5, but 7.5 to 10% of a project's budget should be around change management. And the investment inside, you might say, well, why not? I'm talking to leaders this week that say, well, we're doing this thing and you're hired by us and you should just do the thing. And some might say, that's called just kind of ramming the change through, like, hey, we're doing it. If folks want to stay employed here, they'll do it. Not super inspiring, by the way, right? But we know when you're investing, say, $5 million in a new software, a new process, or, a new people system, what have you, if nobody's using it correctly on the back end, that's just lost investment. And what change management does is it protects you from having negative returns on that investment. And we can prove that. I've actually done the research recently of internal projects where we're documenting how our audiences are engaging, learning, and behaving as a result of our change management. Then going back and asking those business sponsors, how did that project go? Did you accomplish your objectives? Because that causation is really hard to tie. It could be the wrong strategy. It could be the wrong tool. You might have folks who were trained, who left the company, and now all of a sudden the solution falls apart, right? It's not a strict causation, but we know if we do it right, it's going to lead to a high probability of successful outcomes. So I think if I was talking to leaders about leading through change, it's understand the investment that's required and the value that it provides, because you're the one that's going to end up kind of making that decision, right? I think beyond that, and beyond the communications that I talked about earlier, it's being, highly empathetic, understanding how the change is impacting different people across the company, and investing time where those changes are hardest. The leader can't be everywhere. They can't go have one-on-ones with everyone. They can't go attend every training. They can't do a town hall for everybody, right? But if they know where the high pockets are, I think some of that leadership cascade of that leader spending more time with their direct reports in those high pockets can help ease some of those pockets of concern. So it's have a high enough understanding of the change and how folks are feeling about it and go invest time.
In your experience, what are the most common mistakes that leaders make when it comes to change management?
Yeah, it could be the opposite of a lot of what I said. But I think beyond just no showing, and again, not being visible, thinking you've done enough. I think leaders obviously have a higher importance up front in the beginning of a project, but I would welcome our leaders to think about just how they can maintain being that change champion and that change leader, exhibiting those leading through change traits throughout the project. And it shows up differently, right? You're more of a visionary in the beginning. You're a visionary throughout, but the most important is the visionary. And then I think it's, acknowledging, where I'm an engagement lead on a very large ERP tech implementation. They're going through UAT right now, and UAT, user acceptance training, for those, so I don't just drop acronym jargon on you. It's a part of the project that can get really thorny. It can get people get down, and you can have some bad days, right? Because you're just trying to triage every defect. You're trying to make this thing ready for go live, and folks have poured in a ton of time and sweat equity. And those are times that leaders should know, okay, it's tough down there. It's tough in this environment right now. What can I do? Where can I support my leaders take things off their plates, right? What can I do to acknowledge, the investment and the effort that's out there? And so a lot of that positivity and reinforcement behaviors, I think, can really show out too. And leaders that aren't doing that because they just kind of set the vision and said, yeah, the project team will take it from here, loses an opportunity to connect in those spaces.
So a leader has vision, is able to get his or her hands dirty, get down in the weeds, be with the team. What makes a high-performing team?
High performing team. What makes a high performing team, like a project team?
Yeah. What in your view, when you hear a high performing team, it means something different in every
Right.
industry. For your industry, when you hear high performing team, I guess what do you think of when you think of that
Yeah.
term, and what makes a high performing team?
I like that. I like that a lot. Let's shoot out a lot of adjectives and we'll see if we can prioritize them later. But
I love it.
I think being anchored in your company's mission value strategy, right? And being anchored in outcomes is where I start. That's the umbrella. And then when I think of like traits of individuals that I like to work with or that I've had the chance and privilege of either leading or leaning in to support, highly disciplined and responsible really is something that I see understands influence and how to use influence. Not everybody gets it and you have to earn it. Right. And in consulting, I often tell our consultants a few things, but the one thing that I'll pick out for the purpose of this question is about earning currency, earning trust, and then knowing how to spend that trust and spend that currency. Because you can just be looked upon as I deliver great and you're well thought of and thank you for the work. But like at a certain point, you've earned enough trust where you can go influence and advise and brainstorm and raise risks and problems that allows teams to regroup and recalibrate because you've earned that. And so I call it influence as both being able to use it, wield it, and earn it. I think high performing teams have that. And then a good blend of creativity and I would say, business acumen. And so whether that's you're in a utility industry or technology or retail, like you have business acumen for that specific industry and the ability to not just be subscribed to, hey, we all read the same newsletter and we are subscribed to the way this company operates. I think folks can kind of pigeonhole themselves in that way. And that's where the creativity of that's why I love being a consultant, because you can often find yourself in an industry and say, oh, wow, like you all do it this way, but over here they do it this way. And like, let me figure out what pieces I can take from this company or this industry and bring it into this team and continue to build that capability. So those are a couple of my quick thoughts on that.
Yeah, as a consultant, you get to see a lot of different things. You're in different industries. You're able to see how some teams work and others can. How do you spot untapped potential in team members when you go into a company and you see somebody and you think, man, this guy, this girl, they've got something.
Right.
How do you figure that out?
Yeah, I love that. I think it starts with knowing your role within the team and owning it and driving it. Like sometimes folks are so interested in the wide chasm of the problem or the team that they're kind of doing a little bit of everything. But for some reason, you're probably brought on to occupy a role. So when I step into a team and I see somebody say they own communications for the team, and it just becomes very clear that in communications I receive, the drafts that I review, in the way they've architected key messaging channels on it, it's like, wow, you own your work. It's very clear that nobody knows it better than you. And I think you can do that at an individual contributor role all the way up, right? And I think that's a continued strength that anybody can wield. And so it starts with that. And then once I see that combined with business acumen and the ability to, hey, I own this, but I also am dangerous in this space. And I see something over here that I would love to risk and raise or escalate or like have a conversation about. It's like, oh, so not only do you own your own role, but you now have a programmatic view, a project team view that I see of a value that I now need to know to bring you into. Those you said high performing team. I'm doing more of an individuals, but when I see that in individuals and the team is well balanced and can flex across roles, it's a fun team to be a part of because that gives everybody a level of comfort that somebody's got my back too, that this isn't all dependent on my shoulders, that I can pick up a little bit of their stuff and they can pick up a little bit of my stuff.
Is there a leadership principle that has changed your mind about the way that you should do leadership as you've grown as a consultant and helped other teams and individuals perform?
Yeah. I don't know if it's one principle. I think it's, and it might be more of a behavior. Just thinking through the folks that I manage, they all are different journeys. They started the company at different times. Some of them came from consulting, some didn't. Some came from industry and they're consulting in that expertise here. And so there's just folks who have different needs in different parts of their journey to growing within our company. And I think it's the behavior or the principles meeting my folks where they're at and having really clarity on how I can be an enabler of the next step or what they need. And some are, career path oriented, and some are more subject matter expertise oriented, and some are more, I love this industry. I just want to be in it. And that all of those are fair and great answers. I think it's my role as a leader to understand, how do I enable the next best thing for them? And how can I kind of fill their bucket, to use that metaphor again? And so, yeah, I think if I had to boil that down to one word, I guess it would be knowing your people and being flexible in your approach.
Yeah. As a leadership consultant, it's your job to continually fill the buckets of others. How do you continue to fill your own bucket, grow as
Yeah,
a
I love
leader?
that.
Are there daily habits,
Yeah.
practices, things that help you stay grounded?
Yeah, and I love that. And it's, if you turn it on yourself, it's understanding what gives you good energy, trying to find more of that. Sometimes that's not possible. Having, for me, getting back to what's important to me, like having autonomy, ability to be creative, brainstorm, help, teach, like those things are important to me. So I want to make sure I carve that out in my respective week, and treating all things like growth opportunities. So even if it's the more menial task, or it's it's not at the highest of the positive vibes, if you will, having a growth mindset of, okay, I've done this for a couple of years, but what else can I do that ups the ante here, that gets this deliverable or this capability a little bit better. And if you have that mindset, it's hard, almost nearly impossible to get tired, because perfection's pretty hard. So yeah, I think it's those things. And for me, I tell you what, this is a funny recommendation, and it shouldn't come off as a recommendation. When I was a consultant, I didn't have kids, and then I joined leadership. Right when I joined leadership at our firm, I had kids, and previous to that, I'd work till 6:30 and have dinner, and then like hop back on, and my boundaries were not well defined. And I think kids forced me to have, in a good way, well defined boundaries, where I just have protected windows where I can be outside of work, recharge, invest in the things that matter to me outside of work, and show up in a more positive. So have kids is the recommendation, I guess.
That's the easy fix. All right.
Not seeing easy fix, I guess.
So, leadership foundations, change management, building strong teams, leading in consulting.
Right.
Riley, if you could leave my audience with some free chicken, a practical leadership takeaway that they could apply today, what would that be?
For folks who are in leadership roles. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's, in my experience, I've worked with leaders across many industries. There can be a portrayal of leaders of, hey, C-suite, boardroom. I exchange with, my peers and my direct reports, and, I put out important, I have quarterly earnings calls, now I'm getting into Fortune 50, Fortune 100 type stock, right? I find the leaders that are really approachable, door open, talk to me about anything. Let's talk shop. Let's talk about why I made this decision. Creating those opportunities for engagement in a very transparent way. Those are the ones that I've found in both that I've worked with at Propeller, but also the ones that I've served in clients where I'm like, well, you get it. And I can see the people that we're helping consult, your teammates and your direct reports and your company's teams, like I can see the gravity towards you. And so I think it's creating that time and space to be a person, not be a role, right? And be the visionary that you're set out to be as a leader. And be available. And I think if you're doing those things, which is consistent with what we talked about earlier about being visible and sponsor of change, I think you're going to have a lot of people rowing the boat in the direction that you're trying.
Man, I love that. Be a person, not just the role. I think we all need to hear that,
Yeah.
especially as we hold on to ambition. And those who are doers, entrepreneurs, C-suite people, middle management, anybody who is leading others, there's a lot that we're asked to do. So thank you for that encouragement and that reminder. Riley, before we go, how can my audience connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn, Riley Smith. There's probably more considering my last name out there, but I'm with Propeller Consulting. You can go to www.propeller.com. That's our website. You can find our thought leadership there, different things that we do, insights we generate, the things, the consulting services that we provide. So yeah, those are probably the two best ways.
Love it. Well, for my audience, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to share it with somebody, like and subscribe, sign up for our newsletter. We give you all the good stuff and it's free. Until next time, Riley Smith, thanks so much for sharing your wisdom and some of your journey with us. I hope to have you on again soon.
Love it, Mo. Thanks for the time.
Yes, sir. You got it.